righty, let's get into it, shall we? Greetings and salutations, everyone. My name is Andrew Kirchhoff, and welcome to our Thursday night live stream for Week 6 of the 2023 fantasy football season. That was probably one of the most uninspiring games of football I've seen in quite some time. If you had Travis Kelce, fantastic. If you had Harrison Butker, fantastic. If you had, Cortland Sutton, who scored a touchdown late in that game, great. Outside of that, maybe the Kansas City defense, and then it's just kind of a wasteland. Like Patrick Mahomes was okay, but that's not the Patrick Mahomes that we want to hang our hat on every single week. One passing touchdown against the best possible matchup at the position is quite underwhelming, to say the very least. Let me just go pull up these statistics in terms of what the heck the Chiefs even put forth today. Oh man. Either way, hopefully the remainder of Week 6 is going to be far more impactful for our fantasy teams and won't be as as much of a buzzkill as this Thursday night game was. When we compare it to last Thursday night's football game where the score was 40-20 and Sam Howell, had a raging comeback in the second half, fantastic. We love it. But in this specific scenario, I saw a comment in the chat. It was from Brendan Bond. He says, Judy would be a drop if the rumors weren't, currently circulating. And he's correct. The only reason that Jerry Jeudy has any sort of value is the assumption that he could be traded, moved to a different team, and be given some sort of fantasy upside. Because obviously, as a part of the Broncos offense, he's non-existent. It's just abundantly clear that his value, it's just not there this year. And that is unfortunate, but it is the situation. I'm going to be here for the next probably hour plus answering fantasy football related questions going into Week 6. Welcome. Glad for you guys to join me. Couple reminders. If you were going to ask a question, do me a solid and make sure that you mention your scoring format. Also, click the like button down below. It certainly helps continue to support the channel. We have Matt in the chat. What's up, Matt? Andrew Chang, how's it going? David Ramos. David, I hope you're doing well. It says, could have got a little more from Mahomes. Yeah, I think we could have got at least 3 more touchdowns from Mahomes. The amount of times that they stalled in the red zone, the fact that they rather go for that fake field goal in the first quarter rather than just go for it on 4th and 2, I get it. They're scheming some things up, but ultimately I would have loved to have seen a different approach there. Phil says, I was selfish. I wanted a Kelce touchdown. Didn't happen. Honestly, if you wanting a Kelce touchdown makes you selfish, I don't know what I am, because I want a touchdown from every single player across the entire fantasy landscape, right? So I wouldn't consider yourself selfish in that scenario there. I think you're hoping for the upside, and I think we should all kind of be hoping for that in a given week for sure. Jelly of the Month says, Hubbard or Foreman / Roschon Johnson in a half PPR. Unsure that Saquon plays in the late game. Yeah, you're not wrong. Miles Sanders did not practice yesterday or today. He's been held out. So if in fact it's going to be Hubbard versus the Miami Dolphins and or Foreman / Roschon, if Roschon Johnson doesn't play, I would probably take Deontay Foreman there against the Minnesota Vikings this week. If in fact Roschon does play alongside of Foreman, then I would pivot back to playing Hubbard. I just want the running back that's going to be by themselves in the backfield in the given week. Let's see here. Kyle Strobel sent in a super chat, but in the chat was saying, do I trade away JJ for Amon-Ra St. Brown while giving the best team JJ, who also has Diggs and AJ Brown already? Okay, so that was the message you typed in the chat. Your primary question in terms of what you sent in for super chat was chances JJ gets shut down this year. I don't think he's going to get shut down. Again, it's a hamstring injury, yes, but I think 4 weeks on the injured reserve will suffice. It'll get him healthy and it'll get him back. He's a competitor. He's not a guy that's just going to be like, all right, shut me down. He's not one of those kind of veterans that is like, okay, I only have so many more reps on my body and I'm trying to win a Super Bowl kind of thing. Shut me down and let's move on to the next year. I don't think it's that kind of scenario. But trading him away purely depends on what your record is in your current league, how many teams make the playoffs, and in the next 4 weeks, do you have a suitable enough option to kind of sustain? If you don't have a suitable enough option to sustain, and you can see yourself losing the next 4 games because you have JJ on your injured reserve, at that point, yeah, there needs to be a conversation. Even if you're trading away to the best team in the league, the entire point is to try to give yourself a best chance of winning. If that's going to give you the best chance of winning and getting into the playoffs and then maybe you play against that team and he has a terrible week across the board. We've all seen it. Number one seeds can falter in a given week. It's just luck in that overall kind of aspect. But yeah, I don't think it's a bad idea as long as, you look at all the alternative options and that's the best one in your scenario based on record, based on how many teams make the playoffs. I have no problem with it. Trey in the chat was saying, shout out to Harrison Iron Leg Butker. Yeah, he had himself a fantastic game, to say the least. I mean, so for those of you who checked out earlier today's rankings video between my tight end and quarterback rankings, I did mention a specific 2-leg pick'em slip in which I had Harrison Butker scoring more than 1.5 field goals, scoring higher pretty much, and I had Russell Wilson going higher than 3.5 rushing attempts. Andrew is on a bit of a hot streak. The last 3 plays that I've suggested, whether it was Sunday, Monday, and now Thursday, boom, 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 they're hitting. Again, like I said on Monday's stream, I said it on Tuesday's stream. I'm going to turn this thing into a habit. We're trying to continue the momentum every single week and just keep racking up money via the pick'em. So if you guys haven't checked out Underdog Fantasy and you want to continue to tail or put together your own pick'em slips going into the upcoming weeks, be sure to check out Underdog Fantasy. There's a link down in the description. If you sign up using my code, not only will you get the first time deposit match up to $500, so it's a base minimum first time deposit of $10. So if you deposit 10, you'll get 10. You can also deposit 500 and get 500. Totally up to your prerogative, your budget, all that kind of jazz. But you'll also get my rankings sent from my email directly to yours every single Sunday morning for the remainder of the season. Those rankings, half PPR, full PPR, by position, by tier, top 120 flex, all encompassing. So if you're interested, be sure to check that out. Link down in the description. And in terms of eligibility, based on where you're located, the map on the bottom left side of the screen should be able to determine that. Of course, you want to be responsible when drafting and putting together pick'em slips via Underdog Fantasy, so be sure to do so. Thank you. Okay, let's answer some questions, shall we? Rapid fire. Jesse M sends in a super chat. Thank you, Jesse. I appreciate it. It says, Chase and Moss for Bijan Robinson and Puka Nacua. That is a really good question. Okay. Considering I don't expect Moss to be a huge part of this backfield moving forward. I mean, again, they're giving Jonathan Taylor in the next 3 years, 14 a year. And they do have the luxury of kind of waiting until he can get like fully healthy before they unleash him. That being said, in this overall scenario, considering it's a half PPR 14-team league, 2 flex options, your roster consists of Montgomery Moss, Achane, Jeff Wilson Jr., Hunt, Foreman, Kendre Miller, Chase, Higgins, Addison, Downs, JSN, Mingo. I don't mind it because I think that Moss is going to eventually fall off. And if and when he does, I don't expect to see Puka Nacua falling off within this offense. Again, like I've mentioned before, he may not have these 19 to 20 point weeks every week. Touchdown upside is definitely volatile. But in regards to the way that this offense is going to function with Matthew Stafford and Cooper Kupp, the number 2 receiving option of the Los Angeles Rams is of high demand and high value. So whether it's, you go back to 2021, whether it has been Robert Woods, whether it's been Odell Beckham Jr. Late in that season, I don't mind making that trade and getting Bijan Robinson and Puka there, Jesse. I think that's a good trade for you overall. I know it, diminishes the overall upside of your wide receivers, but ultimately you still have Higgins, Downs, Addison, JSN for a late season kind of boost there. I think it's a good trade. We had a question that came in from Ozzy Reyna. Ozzy, thank you very much. Nice to see you, man. Ozzy says, in a full PPR, Debo or Higgins? I am not 100% certain that Higgins is even going to play in the given week. So let me see here. Let me pull up the injury report. It's still Thursday. It's still early. So he's been limited in both Wednesday and Thursday's practice of this week. If I go back to week 5's injury report, the official one for the Cincinnati Bengals, he was also, he was also limited last Friday. So there was a potential that he could have gone last week, but I think the coaching staff and the medical staff probably held him out from playing. So going into this upcoming week, there's a higher likelihood that he does play. If he does against the Seattle Seahawks, I'd probably play him over Deebo Samuel, honestly. I would. Thank you for your question, Ozzy. But we're going to have to wait and see if we even have him active by the time we get there. Appreciate it. I mean, we also may even get conflicting reports in regards to like, oh, he's going to play, but he's going to be limited to a capacity. If that's the case, then we'll just obviously default back to Deebo in that circumstance. Thank you, Ozzy. Kevin S. says, should I trade Metcalf plus Henry for Olave and Kyron Williams in a half PPR scoring format? Ooh, I think it's relatively close in value. I think Metcalf and Olave, I would rather have Olave just slightly ahead of him, assuming, Derek Carr's shoulder, now that he's 3 weeks away from that AC, shoulder injury. Now that we're separated from that, the fact that Chris Olave is now healthy, he did not have any limitation in terms of his overall practice today. I think Kyren Williams and Derrick Henry, as crazy as it sounds, with Derrick Henry's kind of fluctuations of inconsistency, I don't mind that trade. Not at all. Retro fan says, my team W5, Khalil Herbert, JJ, Connor, Laporta, St. Brown. Any thoughts? I mean, Khalil Herbert injured, JJ injured, Connor injured, Laporta just popped up on the injury report. St. Brown's coming off of an injury. I mean, you have unfortunately hit the injury jackpot. Very, very few people have to, deal with this kind of a struggling situation, but consider yourself a warrior, because you're going to have to probably kind of, man, I don't know how you're going to survive that, to be totally honest. You're probably going to be in a situation where you have to move Justin Jefferson now. For sure, especially with all the injuries that are impacting your team, because that's across the board, right? So you're going to be missing starting running backs, starting wide receivers. I don't know how long this calf injury that just popped up for Laporta earlier today is going to last, but you should probably look to move JJ to a team that can give you at least 2 players in return, for sure. Like the example that I gave someone earlier today is like, I would probably go to someone that can give me like a Joe Mixon, but that can also give me a wide receiver that's like a buy low candidate. I mean, it's going to be tough, but worst case scenario, you're going and getting guys like, all right, give me DK Metcalf and give me Joe Mixon and take my JJ and take my James Conner and let's just see where it goes. And if someone's willing to do it, fantastic. I don't know if they'll be willing to, but if they're 4-1, 5-0, they may be comfortable making a move like that, especially if they have insane depth. Paul Adams sent in a question. Thank you, Paul. Appreciate it. Paul says, who should I start, Breece Hall or Chris Godwin? Chris Godwin's start is purely dependent on whether or not Mike Evans is going to be available this week. Now, Mike Evans obviously sustained that hamstring injury back in week 4 against the New Orleans Saints. He had a bye week in week 5. I'm sure he was, obviously with the training staff rehabbing from that, getting it in the right direction. But as of, thus far this week, he has been limited in Thursday's practice, did not practice Wednesday, so he's progressing in the right direction. The assumption is by the time we get to Friday, if we get a limited or a full practice by Mike Evans, I would feel pretty comfortable in a half PPR rolling with Breece Hall. In a full PPR, I'd probably just default back in the direction of Chris Godwin. Thank you. Let's see here. We had a question from Harris. Harris says, in a full PPR, 2 running backs, 1 flex. We have Jacobs, we have Williams, we have Swift, and we have Addison. Really good question. Let me pull up my full PPR rankings from earlier today for Patreon, and let me see where I have Addison in comparison to you have Jacobs, Kyren Williams, and DeAndre Swift. All right. I don't even know if I have Addison higher than any of those options, but I will check. I have Kyren Williams and DeAndre Swift actually lower ranked than Jordan Addison this week. So I have Jordan Addison at 25, Kyren Williams at 27, DeAndre Swift at 30 overall. Obviously, Josh Jacobs is significantly higher. He's in the top 12. So it would be Jacobs, Addison, and Kyren Williams this week. Thank you. Kind of crazy, though, because DeAndre Swift is just so good. But I think Jordan Addison, based on the comments that I specifically heard earlier in the week from Kevin O'Connell, the head coach of the Minnesota Vikings, he's going to get himself a lot of utilization going forward. And especially in the matchup against Chicago, should be fun. Let's see here. We had a question from Bruce. Bruce, thank you very much. As in a full PPR, would you play Godwin or Ridley? I would play Ridley. He has already demonstrated earlier this year that against the Indianapolis Colts, it is an easy matchup. Now they play at home in the same matchup against an inexperienced secondary. He's coming off of a fantastic week against the Buffalo Bills. The momentum's already building there. I would lean in that direction. Thank you. Chris LY says, I traded Marquise Brown and Pacheco for Lamb and Moss. Thoughts? I don't like the idea of trading for Zach Moss. Unless you guys know something that I don't regarding Jonathan Taylor, I'm not a fan of trading for Moss at the moment. I would be someone that wants to get rid of Moss on my team. He is the candidate that I would like to sell, and I've been trying to sell and have sold for the last 3 weeks now. Thank you for your question. But yeah, I would have rather have kept the other 2 options. All right, let's see what we have in the chat. We have Sean O'Hagan says, Higgins' injury scares me. Not sure if the rib injury holds him back the entire season. I mean, I've seen other fantasy prospects in seasons past have rib fractures, rib cartilage injuries, typically it's something that'll linger for a month. Now, I'm not a doctor. This is just anecdotal experience from doing fantasy football for as long as I have. Rib injuries will probably linger for like a month, and then after that, we don't really have to worry about it. But I think the concern that you have is warranted for sure. Phil in the chat was saying, how are we feeling about Lamar in London? Ravens offense has been terrible as of late, which really isn't Lamar's fault. Yeah, it's not his fault. It's those wide receivers, man. They just don't want to catch the ball for some reason. I think they'll be fine. I think it's just a matter of which Tennessee Titans defense are we going to find in the given week, because the Tennessee Titans defense typically are good in terms of stopping the run. If they are not, it'll open up even more opportunities for Lamar Jackson. Otherwise, they'll probably be throwing for the entirety of that game, which in that kind of a scenario, I'm comfortable with, especially with Lamar Jackson's ability to scramble. So I'm not too worried about it. I think he'll be fine. Let's see here. Ando in the chat was saying, in a half PPR bench, 1 Pollard, Mixon, Swift, Chase, Keenan Allen, and Amon-Ra St. Brown. Would you consider Addison in the mix? I mean, yes, I would consider Addison in the mix. Do I start him over these guys? Probably not in a half PPR, but definitely in the realm of possibility. If I'm benching one of those potential options, I probably end up benching Mixon out of the group. I probably would end up playing Pollard, Chase, Swift, Keenan Allen, and Amon-Ra ahead of them all there. Ando. Let's see here. We had a question that came in from Marwin. Thank you, Marwin. Appreciate it. It says, in a full PPR, pick 2, Waddle, Hopkins, Ramondre Stevenson. I think, oh man. Okay, so here's the funny thing. I think that there's a high likelihood that the New England Patriots get their stuff together this week, and Ramondre Stevenson can go back to being a decent, I mean, not like a upside player, but a relevant enough running back to be an RB3, RB2, low-end RB2 potentially. If he can score a touchdown, maybe a high-end RB2. I think there's a good likelihood of that being the case. That being said, I would probably just, in a full PPR, rather play the 2 other options. I'll play DeAndre Hopkins in the London game early Sunday morning. Reminder, I will be live streaming here on the channel for a 3rd consecutive week starting at 6 a.m. Pacific Standard Time on Sunday morning, so keep that in mind. So yeah, I'll play Waddle and Hopkins there. Paul Adam, thank you very much. I appreciate it, Paul. Says, what do you think? Team, okay. Let's hear team. What do you think QB? Okay. Maybe autocorrect completely butchered the sentence. Doesn't matter. All right, your quarterback is Hurts. Your wide receivers are Tyreek Hill, Thielen. Running backs are Jacobs, Mostert. Your tight end is Hawkinson. Your flex is Godwin or Hall. Your defense is McPherson, or your defense is Buffalo, and your kicker is McPherson. What do I think about the team? That's, I think, what you meant to say, but it kind of got crisscrossed there, Paul. No problem. That is one of the that is a stacked football team. For fantasy purposes, Hurts, Tyreek Hill, Thielen's been balling out. Jacobs has gotten back on track. Mostert for the next month is going to be probably 17 plus points every single week, considering how effective the running game has been for the Dolphins and how great of an offense they have been. TJ Hawkinson's getting a boost for the next month with JJ out. Godwin's going to get a little bit of a boost if, in fact, Mike Evans is going to be limited. Breece Hall's gotten himself to a position where he's no longer, on a pitch count, snap count. Your team is beginning to catch a stride here, and I think it's a really, really good team there, to say the very least. I'm sure we can all agree with that. Francisco sends in a question, says, in a 10 team, I'm 1-4. I have Trevor Lawrence, Goff, Saquon, Jacobs, Gibbs, McLaughlin, Spears, CD, Olave, Waddle, London, Watson, Waller. Disappointing start. I need a running back for depth. Any suggestions? Okay. If you're going for a running back for depth purposes, I would probably try to buy low on Joe Mixon, or I would try to buy low on Aaron Jones. Aaron Jones is coming off of a hamstring injury, which obviously makes him more of a risk, but he's also cheaper because of that overall risk that's associated with his value. And he's coming off of a bye week, right? So he would have already gotten past that bye week. You can start him for the remainder of the year in that kind of scenario. But if you're looking for a running back, that would be your play. You still have Saquon and Jacobs, right? So you have your 1-2 combo there. You're going to start CeeDee Lamb and Waddle as your 1-2, Olave in the flex. You have Watson as well. So technically you don't need to make a move for running back. I think, if anything, the injuries that your team has been dealing with and inconsistencies from CeeDee Lamb, Saquon, unfortunately have held you back. But I think in the long term, you should be fine. 1-4 is a rough start, but I think you have enough of a team to be able to build a little bit of a run here with a couple good matchups. And hopefully, bye weeks don't end up hurting you too much in the upcoming games here. But yeah, that would be my primary suggestion if you're in need of a running back for that kind of purpose. Joe Gilmore, thank you very much, Joe. Appreciate it. Says in a 12-team full PPR, I got offered Bijan Robinson and Devonta Smith for either Breece Hall or Travis Etienne. Do I accept? Yeah, absolutely. Just worried about Bijan's volume. Again, Bijan's volume is going, I mean, it's a given, right? As soon as week one happened, we knew that his volume was going to be limited to an extent because of the utilization of Algier, but I wouldn't kind of hold that against him. I think even with the opportunities that he's given, he is an effective enough player in terms of his yards per carry average and, you know, his yards per reception average, yards after the catch, etc., to be a relevant option. I would make that deal in a heartbeat. I would give him most likely, if I was to give one of the two, I'd rather give Breece Hall because I think Etienne is associated with just a higher scoring offense that has far more potential, and they're not associated with Zach Wilson. So I'd rather give him Breece Hall and get back Bijan and Devonta Smith, and I do that in a heartbeat. Thanks for the question, Joe. We had a question from Un. Let's just say Un, or how about Ray? Because everything in the middle there, I don't even know what it is. Okay, so let's just say Ray. Un Ray says, full PPR. I need in need of running backs. Should I trade Herbert for Pacheco? If I can get Hurts for another trade. Yeah, absolutely. If you're trading away Justin Herbert to get back Isaiah Pacheco, like I mentioned a couple weeks, or it was not a couple weeks back, last Friday's video. Yeah, it was 1 week back. Last Friday's video, or last Saturday's video. In fact, last Saturday's video. It was rest of season rankings for all 4 primary positions. In that video as well, I had rest of season strength of schedule. Isaiah Pacheco has the easiest strength of schedule at the running back position for the remainder of the year. So at this point, my suggestion would be, yeah, let's make that deal and let's get Jalen Hurts from a different team there. Thanks. We had a question from Bruce once again. Bruce, there wasn't anything attached here. Let me see if I can find your question though. Bruce says, in a full PPR, would you play Myers or Kirk? I'd rather play Jacoby Myers. Thank you, Bruce. Appreciate it, man. We had a question from Jerry Gonzalez. Jerry says, I'm currently 0-5. Oof, okay. How do we turn this around, Jerry? You have Cousins, you have Lawrence, you have Kyron Williams, Aaron Jones. Okay, so Aaron Jones, and you have Stevenson. Stevenson's been killing you. Piran Foreman, Chase, Puka Nacua, Pittman, Kirk, Downs, Higbee, Henry. Oh, man, we're in a rough spot here. So you've definitely got the means to have good running backs next week. By the time that Aaron Jones returns, you have Kyron Williams. That's fine. Cousins is fine at quarterback and or Trevor Lawrence. They're both great plays. But your wide receivers, Chase, Puka, that's fine. I don't have a problem with that. Pittman and or Kirk or Downs could play in your flex in a full PPR. I think they're all capable options in that position. But your tight ends are killing you. Really, they are. Jeez, how do we make a move here? Okay, so there's a couple ways that you can go about this, Jerry. You can either hold on to your team and hope that they start to perform well, or you grab one player like a Puka Nacua and you go and you break them off for 2 players. Or you take a Jamar Chase coming off a 45-point week and try to go get 2 players that in a full PPR consistently are scoring like 12 to 15 points a week. Like it's possible. You can certainly do that, but in the long run, I think what you truly do need is a consistent tight end. The unfortunate nature of the tight end business is that there aren't any consistent tight ends in reality. I mean, I guess Travis Kelce's the only consistent one. Even TJ Hawkinson falters at times. So tight end's kind of a mess. I think the rest of your positions are fine. But if you want to, you can definitely take Chase, go break him off, go get Hawkinson and another piece. If I was to think off the top of my head, who like if someone's willing to give me Amon-Ra, St. Brown, and Hawkinson for Jamar Chase, like at that point, I'm okay with it just to kind of switch things up. But I think Chase, it really is going to be a 20-point plus guy going forward with a healthy Joe Burrow. It's just a matter of, does your team require more depth outside of that position? Because if your Higbee and Henry are only giving you like 4 or 5 points a week, that could be the nail in the coffin there. Let's see here. We had a question that came in from Harris. Harris says, thanks, Brody. Thoughts on the best defenses to stream this week? All right, let's go over this really quickly. So a little bit of a sneak peek on the top. I have top 15 defenses kind of stacked up right now. Of the remaining defenses, okay, Bills number 1. Obviously, they play against the Giants. San Francisco 49ers 2. Great, because Deshaun Watson's already been deemed out in the given week. So do not start Amari Cooper. Do not start Elijah Moore. Do not start David Njoku. Avoid all offensive pieces of the Cleveland Browns this week and fire up that San Francisco defense. The Miami Dolphins are my number 3 defense. Of course, they take on the Carolina Panthers. That's a great matchup for them. Number 4, the Philadelphia Eagles. They take on the New York Jets. Zach Wilson should be great for them. Number 5 is the Baltimore Ravens taking on Tennessee Titans. They should be fine. I have the Jacksonville Jaguars at 6 taking on Indianapolis in Gardner Minshew. I know it's a little bit of a Minshew mania revenge game there, but again, Jaguars 8-0 at home against the Colts in the last 8 seasons. Kansas City I've already had in my rankings, so we'll go ahead and remove them. They were my number 7 going into the week. How many points did the Kansas City defense put up today? Let me see how much they actually performed in comparison to where I have them kind of projected on my projections model. Kansas City. What did they do today? 14. Yeah, that's way better than that is a couple points better than I thought, which is fantastic. Then I have the Vegas Raiders at 8 taking on New England. I have the New Orleans Saints at 9 taking on Houston. I have the LA Rams taking on the Cardinals at 10. That could be a streaming option, probably rostered in very few leagues. I have the Houston Texans at 11 taking on the Saints. Detroit Lions at 12 taking on Tampa Bay. Minnesota at 13 taking on Chicago. Again, even though the Washington Commanders didn't do much against Justin Fields, they are going to be relatively prone to making mistakes and causing turnovers and probably getting sacked a couple times there. So I wouldn't mind playing against playing Minnesota there. I have the Falcons at number 14. So in terms of kind of streaming options, Jacksonville as a defense, the LA Rams as a defense, the Raiders as a defense, the Texans, the Vikings, the Falcons. Those are still options that are on the table that are decent within the given week. Thanks for the question. I appreciate it. We had a question from Sean. Sean says, accept the trade, sending Waddle for Walker full PPR. You're sending Waddle, you're getting Walker. If in a vacuum, I'm okay with it. Depending on your running back need, which I'm assuming you are in need of a running back, that's why you're making a trade of this capacity. I'm comfortable with it. Yeah, I don't have a problem with that at all. Thank you, Harris. Appreciate it. Or sorry, that's Sean. Thank you, Sean. And Harris, thank you for your question prior to that. Infinity and Bijan says, that's a great name, by the way. Really good name. The following question was, in a 14-man league full PPR, I have Fields, I have Stroud, I have Kyren Williams, Roshan Johnson, Keontae Ingram, Diggs, Sun God, Osborne, Goddard, Hunter Henry. I'm 3-2. I have A-Chain and Connor on my injured reserve. Do I make any moves or do I try to hold for now? Okay, Fields, Stroud. Okay, so Fields is going to play. Fields doesn't have a bye week until late, so you'll start him for the remainder here. Stroud has a bye week next week, so he'll just fill in there. Kyren, Roshan Johnson, Keontae Ingram. Your RB2 is pretty much in flux. Unless Roshan clears concussion protocol tomorrow, you most likely will have to play Keontae Ingram. He's technically the number 1 on the Arizona Cardinals depth chart, but I don't love it. Diggs, Sun God, Osborne, and Goddard are great. So at this point, are you going to move one of these running backs off of your injured reserve? Like, I don't mind the idea of trading away Achane under the assumption that you can get a relevant enough running back in return that you will start for the remainder of the year. Like, if someone's going to give you a legitimate player for him, like if someone will give me, I doubt they do. Actually, if you find the right team, someone could give you a mix-in for him. I don't know if they will, but they could. It's not out of the realm of possibility. Anything's possible, depending on what the team looks like. But if someone can give you a caliber of running back that's like not in the top 12, but just a little bit outside of it, I don't mind it. But I think with your current record, you don't have to. It's just a matter of, I don't think you have to. If Roshan Johnson clears and then plays 2 out of the next 3 weeks, or at least maybe the 3 weeks as the starting running back of the Bears, I think you'll be fine. I don't think you have to move, but you can if, in fact, one of those 2 running backs, Keontae or Roshan, don't end up panning out, and it kind of puts you in a bind to where you might start stacking up a couple L's in the next coming weeks, then I can consider moving Achane there because he is a hot commodity, to say the least. Thank you. Dylan Lou sends in a question, says, Richardson's on the injured reserve, Achane's in the injured reserve, Aaron Jones is on bye, CeeDee Lamb, Waddle, Pitts, Pittman, T. Higgins, DeMercado, Hubbard, McLaughlin. I'm 3-2, 10-team PPR. A lot of poverty here. What moves are you looking to make here, Andrew? Okay, so, oh man, I don't know who your quarterback is, so I'm going to assume you've picked up one off the waivers. Considering you have CeeDee Lamb and Waddle, Kyle Pitts, Michael Pittman Jr., T. Higgins, those are great options, but your running backs are a complete disaster. DeMercado, Hubbard, and McLaughlin are not going to cut it. In this scenario, I know you have Aaron Jones coming off the bye. In this scenario, in a 10-team league at this point, I'd be willing to take Achane and just pitch him off. Try to go get a running back that has at least some sort of relevant value. Like if I'm looking at the potential of moving Achane, if someone's going to give me James Cook, I'll take it. If someone's going to give me Mixon, I'll take it. Henry, I'll take it. Brian Robinson Jr., I'll take it. Breece Hall, I'll take it. Outside of that, Jonathan Taylor, yep, give me that. Stevenson, that's a hard one for me. Alexander Madison, that's a hard one for me. I probably don't take that either. I'm not taking Jerome Fords. I'm not taking Rashad Whites. I'm not taking Miles Sanders. It's got to be an upper tier player because they are in return getting a hyperbolic time chamber that is going to release a 25-point monster in about 5 weeks. So they're going to have to give you something good in return. And hopefully that kind of readjusts your lineup and give you a little bit of life back at the running back position there. Okay, let's see here. We had a question that came in from John S. John, where's your question? John says, have no idea who to start this week. Obviously starting Eckler, but my other running back options are Hall, Swift, and Jonathan Taylor in a full PPR. I need an RB2 and I need a flex. At this moment, unless... Okay, so Swift is your RB2. That's a given. As for your flex, I would probably lean in the direction of playing... Man. I don't know what Jonathan Taylor's going to look like. I don't know if they're going to let him have a full workload. So for now, I think I probably just end up playing Breece Hall out of fear that Jonathan Taylor is once again splitting touches in the given week. More of a 50-50 share rather than that, 90-10 kind of split that would, whatever we saw on last Sunday's game against the Titans. So I would expect more of a split, but at that point, I'd probably end up playing Breece Hall in the flex. And I do it comfortably. I think that's fine. Thank you, John. Appreciate it. And then your follow-up question was, are we concerned about the Laporta? Yeah, I mean, at this point, we don't know the extent of the injury. If it holds him out for a couple weeks, we'll figure it out. But again, he is a good enough commodity to where even if he misses one game and then returns, I think I'll be fine with it. I'm not panicking that much right now. Darth Raider says, pick 2, half PPR, Osborne, Stevenson, Flowers, London. Good question. In a half PPR scoring format, goodness gracious. Let's see. Where do we have these players ranked? Where do I have Osborne in comparison? I moved up Osborne, considerably in comparison to where I had him ranked on Wednesday's video. All right, let's see here. Osborne is there. And then who are your other options? You have Stevenson, you have Flowers, you have London. Okay, so where's Flowers on this list? Flowers there, London's there. In a half PPR, I probably end up playing Stevenson and London there. If you're worried about Stevenson, you don't want to play him against the Raiders, that's fine. I don't blame you. I would end up doing it, but if you are worried about it, you play Flowers and London next to each other. Thank you. Appreciate it. We had a question that came in from Darth. Okay, so that was Darth Raider. Appreciate that again. Sean says, trade DA for AE, full PPR. I'm assuming that question is trade Devontae Adams for Austin Eckler. Yeah, if you can trade for Austin Eckler and trade away Devontae Adams in exchange for him, yes, absolutely, you should do it. Let's see here. We had a question that came in from Paul Adam. Paul, thank you very much. I appreciate it. Paul says, you've seen my team. Is there any trade you suggest in a full PPR? 1-4 at the top of the league at the moment. Let me go back up and let me look at this team. With Hurts, Hill, Thielen, Jacobs, Mostert, Hawkinson, Godwin, and Hall, Buffalo defense, and McPherson. No, I'm not making a trade with that team. I think I'm very comfortable just continuing to rack up wins. I don't think you need to mess around. You have a top-tier quarterback, a top-tier wide receiver. Thielen's a top 12 wide receiver at the moment, and until the Carolina Panthers do anything differently, he's going to continue to maintain that value. Even if they bring in a wide receiver via trade, it's not going to really impact Thielen too heavily because the reason he's getting targets is because he's open. And he'll continue to be that security blanket for the rookie quarterback there. Jacobs, I'm not moving. Mostert, I'm not moving, especially for the next 4 weeks. If you want to move Mostert, you can. Let him have another big week here against Carolina because, again, we want to take advantage of the fact that he's going up against one of the better matchups, get 25 points, and then ship him away the next week, go after a top-tier running back in exchange. Hawkinson, you're not moving, and Hall and Godwin you keep. So that would be the only suggestion I have is you can ship away Mostert after a singular week. And just try to go up for someone that's far better. Thank you. Like, if you can move him and somehow bring in Bijan in return, ETN in return, I'll take those. I don't have a problem with that because eventually Achane is coming back. We had a follow-up question from Paul Adam. The follow-up question goes as such. By the way, my bench is Jamison Williams, Brees Hall, Chris Godwin, Romeo Dobbs, Downs, Edwards. Yeah, at that point, none of those guys on the bench outside of Brees and Chris Godwin are of value in terms of tradable options. So yeah, that would be my only suggestion there, Paul. Thank you. G-Nade says, I have to sit one. Ridley, Moore, Nakua, Amon-Ra, St. Brown. Oh wow. That hurts my soul. If Amon-Ra St. Brown gets a full practice by Friday, it's Amon-Ra, Nakua, and Ridley. If he doesn't, I'll play Moore in his stead. Thank you. Jerry Gonzalez sends in the following question. Jerry says, trade Chase for Jacobs and Ingram in a full PPR, 0-5. I mean, I don't think you're getting enough in return, but if that's the best offer that you can fish out, I guess you could. In a full PPR, I just feel like, yeah, I guess you could pull it off. If you're desperate for a running back, you have at least decent wide receiver play, I guess you could pull it off. I don't love it, I'll tell you that much. And obviously, you're in a desperate enough position to where you kind of have to make a move. But, yeah, I'm hesitant of that though. Man, that's a tough trade to make. That's a tough trade to make. But desperate times call for desperate measures. Danny Navarro in the chat was saying Nico Collins or Garrett Wilson in a non-PPR. In a non-PPR scoring format, I'm probably starting Nico Collins there. We're trending in the direction where Tank Dell is most likely not going to play. Every player thus far this season that has at least been like fantasy relevant that has had a concussion and has been in the protocol has at least missed 1 week. So that is the assumption. Tank Dell probably misses this week. It opens up that much more target opportunity for Nico Collins, assuming that he can get away from Marshawn Lattimore within the coverage. Let's see here. Aiden says, CD going to start playing? I mean, I hope so. It's not really CD that needs to start playing. It's Dak Prescott and Mike McCarthy figuring it out because they have been awful. I mentioned it in the last couple of days. Like the fact that Kellen Moore left this offseason, joined the Los Angeles Chargers, that has been a huge difference maker. The Dallas Cowboys from 2019 through 2022 were a top 5 offense in almost every category. Rushing, passing, total points scored. Like ultimately they were clean. And yes, maybe there was a philosophy kind of difference in mind between McCarthy and how he wanted Kellen Moore to call plays, but McCarthy's not getting it done. That's just it. And hopefully they can kind of wake up. But yeah, it's tough, man. The assumption is that good players will eventually kind of level out, and at least a guy like CeeDee Lamb will get back to his top 5, 6 wide receiver status. But yeah, it's tough to trust that offense, to say the least. Let's see here. Doink sent in a question. Thank you, Doink. Says, full PPR. Do I start Ramondre Stevenson or DeMercado? I would probably end up playing Ramondre there. DeMercado is probably going to be in a little bit of a committee situation with Keontae Ingram earlier this week being placed as the RB1 in the depth chart of the Arizona Cardinals. My assumption is that it'll be a committee situation going forward. Thank you. Steve sends in a question. Says 99%, 3-3 after King Butker was amazing. 3 for 3 for King Butker. Yeah, I think he was 4 for 4, right? How many field goals did Butker make? Let's see here. Yeah, he was 4 for 4 field goal and an extra point. That was beautiful. We love it. Goff or Stroud for my QB2. I would rather play Goff this week, especially considering, well, yeah, if he gets Amon-Ra St. Brown back, I would still be okay, even if Gibbs is out and Laporta is out. I'll still be fine playing him over Stroud. Also, play Ayuk, Debo, or Jacoby Myers in the flex, half PPR. I would probably end up, man, that's the thing. Because we already know Deshaun Watson's out, that is going to be an absolute slaughter fest in that game. There's a chance that Purdy could actually just dice up that defense, and both Debo and Ayuk could be relevant because of short field advantages. And eventually, once the score is 25-0, the Cleveland Browns defense isn't going to play as hard as they typically do. So for now, I'd like to play Jacoby Myers, but I could talk myself into playing one of the other 2 options. Thank you. Let's see here. We got a question that came in the chat from Spencer Garrett. It says, I'm 3-2, half PPR, 10 teams. I have Burrow, Swift, Walker. Okay, pretty good running backs. Pretty good quarterback when healthy. CeeDee Lamb, AJ, as in probably AJ Brown, I'm assuming. Travis as an no, not Travis Etienne, probably Travis as in Kelsey, James Cook, and I'm streaming a kicker and / defense. Last week before the injury, I traded Justin Jefferson away from, oh my God, for Swift and Travis Kelsey. Any tips? I mean, at this point, I mean, you have 3 solid running backs, Swift, Walker, and Cook. Keep them all. You have Travis Kelsey, you have AJ Brown and CeeDee Lamb, Joe Burrow. I don't think you need to make any moves. You're in a 10-team league with a all-star squad across the board. I mean, unless you can somehow go and swindle away, elite players from people in your league somehow because you have a silver tongue, and they trust you, wholeheartedly. I guess you could go ahead and start making moves, but otherwise, you don't need to. Let's see here. Oskino says, JT have any value this week? I would assume that if he has any value, it's probably as like a low-end RB2, high-end RB3. Josh Downs or Rachaad White this week? I would probably rather play Josh Downs. Thanks for the question, Steelers12. Brendan says, Brian Robinson Jr., Saquon, or Garrett Wilson in the flex. I probably end up playing Brian Robinson Jr. out of the bunch. I don't even know if Saquon's going to have a healthy offensive line. It looks like Daniel Jones is trending towards not playing. It's going to be Tyrod Taylor in the given week. I would hope that Saquon's his upside of being a receiving back, of being a dynamic enough running back to be able to take on a defense of this magnitude and still succeed. I would hope that he could still find value, but ultimately, I think it's just going to be a shit show on Sunday Night Football. I probably just end up playing Brian Robinson out of the group. We had a question from Dram in the chat. Says, one of my leagues is a mess. I don't know what to do in a full PPR. I have Purdy, I have King Henry, I have Tyjae Spears, Diggs, Ridley, Kittle, Ayuk, and Amari Cooper. Miles Sanders is on the bench. If you need help with this team, I mean, the primary way to help yourself with this team legitimately is you take Kittle and you ship him. You got to ship Kittle away. And you got to go get a running back because you're not going to survive with Sanders. Not with Sanders injured, and the fact that this Carolina Panthers team is worse than I ever could have imagined it being. Enzo in the chat was saying, traded Keenan Allen and Breece Hall for Tyreek Hill, Devonta Smith, and Pacheco. Congratulations. If I could shake your hand, I would. Firm handshakes. Well done, Enzo. Jesse Lister says, who would you start in a full PPR? Calvin Ridley, Chris Olave, or Marquise Hollywood Brown? I would rather play Calvin Ridley. What does that say? Hill or Justice Hill or Jeff Wilson in a full PPR this week? If Jeff Wilson Jr. is active and he has no limitation at practice and Salvin Ahmed is not going to be an active part of the lineup, I would probably rather play Jeff Wilson Jr. Otherwise, if Salvin Ahmed is active and he is the higher overall running back in the depth chart, at that point I would probably play Justice Hill. Constantino Gonzalez says, my boy, PPR, Moss, Ford, Spears, or Foreman? Good question. If in fact we're in a scenario, right, where, let me think about this. Yeah, if in fact we're in a scenario where Roschon Johnson is not active, he cannot clear concussion protocol, Deontay Foreman is the play. If in fact he does clear concussion protocol, I would probably end up playing Moss there. Thank you. All right, we had a couple more questions that were sent in via Super Chat. Brandon Malone, thank you, Brandon, appreciate it. Says, would you trade Flowers and Muth for Hawkinson? Yes, I would. My other wide receivers are Hill, Wilson, London, Puka. Yeah, I would make that trade comfortably, actually. Freiermuth is not worth anything right now. The offense sucks. Even when he plays, he doesn't have that much upside. It's just like, if you can ship him for free, especially now that he's injured, by all means, take care of that. Send away Flowers for sure. We had a question from Dylan Liu. Says, update from earlier. I would like to sell CeeDee Lamb and Aaron Jones for Kamara, Garrett Wilson. Thoughts? Also, my waiver quarterback options are Purdy, Stafford, and Goff. Okay, so you have good quarterback options on the waiver. Picking up Purdy is probably the best of the three. So it's Purdy, Goff, Stafford, probably the rest of the season in that order. But in your scenario of trading CeeDee Lamb and Aaron Jones for Kamara and Garrett Wilson, that puts a lot of onus on Garrett Wilson actually showing up and being relevant in the next couple weeks, or for the remainder of the season. Forget the next couple weeks. I know you're, and the reason why I say the next couple weeks in specific is because we're trying to get that, the overall record, the win-loss record, on the right track going forward. But in the long term, I don't think it's even close. I think CeeDee Lamb is going to outscore Garrett Wilson by a long shot. I think Kamara and Aaron Jones, Kamara could be given a little bit of a slight edge potentially, but I think there's still very comparable in terms of their overall upside, I think you keep what you have at the moment. If you want to make the trade, you can. You're just, if you're asking for my opinion, I'd probably keep. I'd be patient with those two. Constantine sends in a question, says full PPR, Jacoby Myers, Deebo Samuel, Marquise Hollywood Brown. Which two would you pick? Thanks for all the help. Okay, no problem. I appreciate it, Constantine. If I'm playing two of those options this week, it's probably Myers and Marquise Hollywood Brown. Those are the two that I have ranked higher in a full PPR at the moment. Thank you. Brian says, is Justin Tucker droppable? It depends. What are your alternative options? I mean, if there's guys like Kaimi Fairbairn available in your league, I mean, it's kind of crazy that we're dropping Justin Tucker, but yeah, I'd be willing to do so, to be honest. Let's see here. Kellen Goodall says, thoughts on potentially trading Darren Waller for Breece Hall? I have Logan Thomas. If you can somehow, some way, Kellen, get that to happen. I don't know how you're going to do it. I don't know. Yeah, I have no clue how you're going to do it. But let's say you do it. Firm handshakes. Well done. Congratulations. You just secured yourself a top 15 back for the remainder of the year, if not better. With Darren Waller, who, again, if you can ship away any of the players from that Giants squad, I'm happy doing so at the moment. Let's see here. We had a question from Dino Butt in the chat. Says, JT, D-Hop, Dameon Pierce, Amari Cooper, Pittman, or Ford in the flex. I'm desperate. Amari Cooper's not playable considering, again, Deshaun Watson's out. Neither is Jerome Ford. So it's between Michael Pittman Jr., D-Hop, JT, and Dameon Pierce. I don't like Dameon Pierce's matchup. I don't like JT's lack of usage within the offense so far. So it's between DeAndre Hopkins and Michael Pittman Jr. If I'm playing one of the two, I probably end up rolling with Michael Pittman Jr. there this week. He has served pretty well against the Jacksonville Jaguars in the last 3 games he's played against them. And Gardner Minshew really likes to target him. Nearly a 30% target share when they've played together this season. So I'm comfortable there. All right. C. Banger sent in a question. C. Banger, hope you're doing well. Thank you. Trade strategies when league think you're a shark. Yeah, look, here's the thing. In my leagues, I can only... Okay, here's the thing. When the league knows you're a shark and they know that you know more than them, and you're in a situation where you can very rarely come away with trades, you have to hit up people when they are fed up and desperate, kind of, you know what I mean? Like, it's almost like you're taking advantage of their lack of emotional control, and that's just how you're going to have to play the game. It makes you more of a shark, to be honest, but you're going to have to kind of work people like that. Like in my leagues, I am looking for people who are just fed up with CeeDee Lamb and just can't handle it. I mean, 2 weeks ago, literally prior to the Justin Fields, pop off, I was in every league like, all right, who's got Justin Fields? All right, you done with him? Because if you're done, go ahead. Take X, Y, or Z player off my bench or off my team. Let me get him on my roster. And then starting to kind of get the momentum there. I always want to go after players that are underperforming and fantasy managers are getting sick of. So if there are players like a CeeDee Lamb, a Devonta Smith that, are I mean, I know they have bigger names, but if they're causing people trouble, that's the guys you have to go after. And you have to just, at some of these trades, you kind of have to lose. You have to give up the players that they want. I'm not saying completely, mortgage your team, but make it to where they feel like they're winning, even though they're not. Let's see here. We had a question from World of Entertainment. It says, what is this question? It says, I'm in a 14-team league, full PPR. We have Herbert, Jacobs, DeAndre Swift, Breece Hall, Roschon Johnson, Ridley, Hollywood Brown, Godwin, Thomas, Woods, Kelsey, Logan Thomas, Tyler Bass, Cowboys defense. Rate my team. Okay, Herbert is fantastic. Top 6 quarterback rest of the season, maybe top 7. Jacobs is great. Swift is great. Hall is great. Again, 2 of those, I mean, honestly, they could all be top 12 by the remainder of the season. It wouldn't surprise me. Ridley's fantastic as of late, and the offense has got some pretty good shootouts coming in the upcoming schedule. Hollywood Brown has played incredibly well. When Kyler returns, he's only going to get better, in my opinion, assuming Kyler is somewhat effective, but I don't think they would rush back Kyler from the injury. I think they'd only bring him back once they know that he is a capable enough quarterback to get the job done. Kelsey's fantastic. Logan Thomas is probably a guy that you can end up moving. He's probably going to have himself a solid enough week this week to where you can either keep him and wait for the Kelsey bye week to kind of shift him in. Otherwise, you can take Logan Thomas to a team that needs a tight end and try to go pick a wide receiver off their squad by taking Godwin and Logan Thomas and trying to pull somebody off their team. That would probably be my thought process. Otherwise, good looking team. Kevin Smith, how you doing, man? Finally taking off. Until next week, thanks again. Thank you, Kevin. Appreciate it. Steve says, all right, GTG, rest of season, 3-3. Half PPR, Cousins, Eckler, Kyron Williams, Waddle, CeeDee Lamb, Ingram, Ayuk, benches Myers, Debo, Rice, McLaughlin, Stroud, and Ford. I mean, that's a pretty, Cousins is fine. Eckler, Kyron Williams is great. Waddle, CeeDee Lamb is, again, I think CeeDee Lamb will eventually level out. Ingram is fine. Ayuk is, decent at the flex. I think Myers is probably better. You have Ayuk and Debo on the same team, which I hate, primarily because it's tough to know who to start between the two because it could be either of them. So I would probably look to try to move one of those two. Would you drop Mims for downs? No, I would. Well, yeah, you know what? I wouldn't mind it. I was going to say I'd like to keep Mims because eventually once they do trade Jerry Jeudy, because, I don't even know if he has trade value anymore within the National Football League. I'm assuming he does, considering he's still on a rookie contract. He's a first-round pick, so they could give him that 50-year option wherever he gets traded to. But I don't mind the pickup of downs if you're going to utilize him. If you're not going to use him in the next 4 to 5 weeks, if you don't, foresee a bye week usage of him or, an injury that forces you to play him in your lineup, I think Mims with the potential of Jerry Jeudy getting traded probably could be a better option going forward. But if you're going to use downs, yeah, let's make the move. Let's see here. Rafa Q says, should I trade Josh Allen to obtain Kyron Williams and Kamara? Yes, 100%. Do it now. Thank you. Like, immediately do it. No, it's not even a question. I know you have Stafford on your bench. 1,000% make that deal. Let's see here. Mikey B says, would you drop Mims? Oh, yes, that was Mikey B's question. Thank you, Mikey B. Appreciate it. The Dream JC says, half PPR, start Ramondre or Deontay Foreman. Planning on starting Madison. Also have Roschon Johnson and Pierce. Also, okay, so let's put this out on the table. If you're starting Madison, you have Roschon Johnson. Okay, so let's say, for example, we're in a situation where Roschon Johnson doesn't clear concussion protocol, and it's Deontay Foreman or Ramondre Stevenson. It's the Minnesota Vikings. Deontay Foreman he's a bell cow monster if they give him enough touches. I would probably still end up playing Ramondre there, but I could convince myself into playing Deontay Foreman. I could convince myself to do it. Like, it wouldn't be difficult. Like, I just have to set my lineup and walk away and not look at the phone for like 10 minutes and let the game start and just let it happen. That's the kind of thing. Otherwise, it would be against my that's tough. It's tough. I wouldn't want to, but I could do it. I wouldn't mind it per se. Also, my wide receiver 2 and flex: Keenan Allen, Hopkins, Nico Collins, Garrett Wilson, Josh Palmer, Gibbs, Jameson Williams. Wide receiver 2 and flex, Keenan Allen has to play, right? Easily. And then outside of him, I honestly think DeAndre Hopkins has to play. All right, Andrew in the chat was saying, half PPR, my Mixon and Addison for Josh Jacobs. Depends what kind of depth you have. I think you're giving away a little much because Addison in the next couple of weeks is going to probably score more and more touchdowns, and he'll probably only increase his overall value, which would make it easier to trade him for a higher overall piece there. Let's see here. We had a question that came in via Super Chat from Hood. Hood says, should I trade Ridley, Brian Robinson, and AR-15 for JT and Olave? My quarterback is Tua and Stroud. My wide receivers are Ridley, Adams, and Waddle. So you're trading away Ridley, Brian Robinson, and then the injured reserved AR-15, who's probably going to be out for 4 to 6 weeks, maybe 4 to 8 weeks, for JT and Olave. Yeah, I'd probably make the deal. I think in the long run, it probably serves you. Yeah, I think JT in the long run is a better option than Brian Robinson. Even though I think Ridley is a better option than Olave, I think the separation of JT and Brian Robinson is in favor of your position. So I'm okay with that move. Justin in the chat, or in the super chat, thank you very much, Justin, says, Andrew, rate my team. I have Lawrence, I have Pollard, I have Montgomery, I have Kupp, Puka Nacua, Keenan Allen, Waller, Pierce, Nico Collins, Zay Flowers. As long as Pollard starts showing up in the coming weeks, Montgomery's a touchdown every week. Kupp and Puka Nacua are going to be incredible. So is Keenan Allen, considering the absence of Mike Williams. Waller hopefully will kind of have himself whether it is Tyrod Taylor or Daniel Jones, a quarterback that is favoring him in terms of throwing him the ball. Pierce will be great in a couple weeks once, in fact, they get past a little bit of this tough schedule and he gets 2 of his interior offensive linemen back from injured reserve. His full offensive line will be back at that point. Nico Collins has been great this season. Flowers has been great in terms of overall targets. I think it's a solid team. You just need your players to kind of start finding their footing, and that's mainly Pollard, who I'm referring to. Luis Castillo, thank you, Luis, says, in a PPR, is Najee Harris droppable? My other running backs are ETN, Swift, Sanders, Hubbard, Jeff Wilson Jr. on waivers. Is he droppable? There's a possibility. There's a situation in the world where maybe are they going to fire Matt Canada? I think it's relatively unlikely that they do fire Matt Canada. Is he droppable? I would never drop Najee Harris. I would never do it. I think there is too much inherent value with having a starting running back on any team. Like at this moment, right? If I just go, let's venture off and let's look at some things here, because it is funny. Najee Harris and Rachaad White. Let's just compare them to both, because I never hear anybody complaining about Rachaad White, but I think there's a conversation to where we should be complaining about him. Rachaad White has scored 8 more points than Najee Harris in a half PPR right now. I know he's played 1 less game, but I mean, Rachaad White's production is, 2 5-point games, 3 games of less than 10 fantasy points. Like when I look at him and Najee Harris, like I think, okay, they're both the same kind of running back. They're both underwhelming for majority of the season. Obviously, Najee Harris far more often, but they're both starters nonetheless. And if I'm going to give away a starter and just drop him outright, I mean, if you're going to pick up Jeff Wilson Jr., you better hope that he is scoring points. Otherwise, if there somehow, some way becomes a reality where Matt Canada, the offensive coordinator of the Steelers, gets fired and they start actually calling the correct plays and actually put in an innovative scheme that isn't just complete high school football related, I mean, the play calling is terrible in Pittsburgh. But anyway, I have a hard time dropping him. I do, honestly. All right, let's see here. Should I trade Amari Cooper for Javonte Williams? Do we want Javonte Williams? I don't think I want to have Javonte Williams on my team. The way that offense looks, it looks like it's a 3-headed monster committee between him, Samaje Perine, and Jaleel McLaughlin. I think I'd rather wait until I get Deshaun Watson back, and Amari Cooper will be of value after which that occurs. What do we do with Zach Moss? Try to trade him away, Alex. Is Brock Wright an ad for if Laporta misses? I've seen Brock Wright play last season. He is a good goal line tight end who can make a play after, if they come out in 13 personnel, maybe 23 personnel, 2 backs and 3 tight ends on the goal line. They're about to punch it in. Here comes a play action, and then Brock White's open in the back of the end zone. We've seen that on multiple occasions last year. I don't know if he's a reliable enough tight end to work the middle of the field in the way that Laporta does. That's my only concern there, Roberto. Nathan Gutierrez in the chat says, Andrew, I have Swift and Montgomery and Henry and Najee Harris at running back. My wide receiver, okay, cool. So that's pretty good, solid. I mean, obviously, Najee Harris is not solid, but at least the other 3 are decent options there. At wide receiver, I have Puka Nacua, Kirk, Deontay Johnson, and Lockett. Should I trade an RB for a wide receiver, or do I stay put? I would probably just stay put. You're going to want to have 3 running backs on roster, especially with the upcoming bye weeks and the potential for injuries. Like, if you trade away, let's say, for example, Derrick Henry, and your third, running back option is Najee Harris, and he would have to, slip in a given week to fill in for a bye week or an injury, it's not as, the conviction for me is not there to trust them in those scenarios. Steve says Debo/Ayuk stash. If one gets hurt, the other is OP. I mean, technically, sure, but I mean, that is very much so reliant on a negative situation occurring, which I typically don't foresee. Logan Thomas or Hawkinson this week? Hawkinson for sure. Logan Thomas is a great play. I think Logan Thomas actually can be considered as a decent flex play in the given week, but yeah, it is Hawkinson. As Dean Zach says, hey, Andrew, any moves to make? 10-team full PPR, Lawrence, Jacobs, Kyron Williams, Kupp, Amon-Ra, Logan Thomas, Mostert. That's a really good squad. Benches Love, Mixon. Okay, Brian Robinson. Wow. Okay, so you've got really good players. So here's my suggestion, as Dean. Wow. You've got really good players. You've got really good running back depth too. Jeez. My suggestion at the moment, just like I was telling somebody else, you wait till Mostert has another monster week here, and then you try to move him for probably another player. Like if you can take Mostert and go and get a better running back, you should. That's probably the move. Dak or Dobbs this week at quarterback? Let me see who I have ranked higher. As of right now, in a standard 4-point per passing touchdown league, I have Dak Prescott one spot ahead of Joshua Dobbs. He's number 18 compared to Joshua Dobbs at number 19. Thanks for the question. Appreciate it. We had a question that came in from Corey Olson. Corey, I hope you're doing well. Thank you. Corey says, hey, Andrew, I'm losing ground 3-2. Not bad, but my quarterback and my tight end is a little sus. With Lawrence, Russell Wilson, and Zach Ertz / Darren Waller. I have Jonathan Taylor, Kyron Williams, Bijan, Montgomery, Barkley. Yeah, you got the monster squad there, Corey. Wide receivers are AJ Brown, Olave, Addison, and Evans. Trade who? If you want to trade for a quarterback, I'm not totally against it. If I'm trading one of those running backs, like who am I trading? That's the question. Like, if someone wants to give you a top 3 quarterback, top 3 as in Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts, Patrick Mahomes, and they'll take. I mean, do I even want to make that move? Send away Kyron Williams for one of those guys? I don't think I want to make that move, honestly. It might be greedy, but I guess you could. In your circumstance, you could, Corey. You could. Or you take one of these guys, like you take, Barkley, and you just say, hey, give me Travis Kelce, and you make that move. I guess you could make those moves. I don't love it because I always want to have running back depth, especially when you have so many studs, but you can't start them all every week, which obviously forces you to have to make a move, which I understand. All right, let's hear. Kenneth in chat says, watch this question. Watch this question? What does that mean? Which QB do I drop? Love or CJ Stroud? I have Trevor Lawrence already. I need to pick up a tight end now that since Laporta is potentially out. Is he out or is he potentially out? If I'm dropping one of the two, you have Lawrence. When is Lawrence's bye week? All right, let's see here. Jaguars schedule. Lawrence's bye week is week 9. I know that Stroud's bye week is next week. Jordan Love is on bye week now. Let me see. In his absence, because I think Lawrence is your starter rest of the season regardless, I'm going to go look up week 9 NFL. Let's see who has a better matchup, Stroud or Jordan Love. The Green Bay Packers take on the LA Rams, and the Houston Texans play the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Both of them are at home in those matchups. I would rather have CJ Stroud. Thank you. Appreciate it. Let's see here. We had a question that came in from JJ's Watch Hangout. Thank you, JJ. Wide receiver to trade for Jefferson. Waddle, Kirk, Collins. I mean, it depends what your record is. Like, if you're 5-0 at this current position and you're like, all right, I'm going to make the playoffs. Like, I have enough of a team to be able to do it. I'd give away Waddle for it. But that's very risky, right? There's a potential in which Jefferson doesn't come back for 5 to 6 weeks. 4 is the minimum, but there's a 21-day window after the IR stint in which he could be activated. So again, he could miss up to, technically 7 weeks, but it probably won't be the case. I think 4 is probably where it ends up being. But if you want to improve your team, I'm willing to give Waddle, Kirk, Collins, one of the bunch. I'm not giving 2 of them. That's for sure. Because I'm not trying to kill my entire wide receiver depth and then go 0-4 in the next 4 weeks and then kind of kill my entire team. What running back should I be able to get for Kittle? That's a good question. Here's the thing. What running backs would I be looking for is different than what are you going to get, because what you get in your leagues, guys, is purely dependent on what your league mates value those players at. What I value a player at could be very much so different than what your league mates value them at, comparatively based on what their rosters consist of and all that kind of jazz. So you just basically want to find a team that has enough running back depth, 3 or 4 players at the running back position that are solid. And if you're going to trade away a Kittle specifically, I keep bringing up the name Joe Mixon, and I think that's the name that I kind of just want to stick with and try to go after. A guy that is going to be the primary RB of his team, will have touchdown upside in coming weeks. Like that's what I want. As to whether you get him, that's up to your league mates. Outside of that, again, I'm not trading him for Ramondre. I'm not trading him for Dameon Pierce. I don't want Javonte Williams. I don't want Rashad White or Miles Sanders. I want players that are going to be in that top 17-ish conversation. I'll take an Aaron Jones. That's fine by me. Jonah John, what's up, Jonah? Hope you're doing well. Jonah says, start Amari Cooper or Tyler Lockett. Considering Deshaun Watson's out, I'll take Tyler Lockett this week. Also, I got T. Higgins for Addison. Is that an okay trade? Assuming that T. Higgins is healthy sooner rather than later, it could be an equivalent trade, I would say. I mean, look, I think with Justin Jefferson's absence, Addison in the next 4 weeks will be more valuable than Higgins. But in the long term, there's a potential in which T. Higgins could be comparable to Addison. If in fact Joe Burrow can spread it out and stay healthy, and his offensive line can, pass block for more than 2.5 seconds before he has to get the ball out of his hands. Start Pitts, Schultz, or Ferguson. If I'm not mistaken, I have Pitts ranked the highest out of that group. I had a video that I posted earlier today. So if you're interested, check that out. Thank you very much. Chi-Town says, hey, Andrew, would you rather start Nico Collins this week or Lockett? I would probably rather play Lockett. I am worried about the matchup against Marshawn Lattimore. G Mobile says pick 2, Curtis Samuel, Elijah Moore, Amari DiMercato. I would probably play Curtis Samuel and Amari DiMercato there. I don't really trust PJ Walker 1 week from signing with the team, 1 week of practicing with the team to jump in and be the starting quarterback against the 49ers defense. I don't trust it. Sang says Judy is a Jag. If Judy gets traded to the Jags will be trolling. You know how much money they have invested in wide receiver? It is an absurd amount. They're paying, I think, $16 a year for Christian Kirk. I mean, I guess technically based on how much they utilize him, it's great, but at the end of the day, he's still a slot receiver, and you can get a slot receiver for far less money and within the NFL and still have a pretty successful offense. Nonetheless, I don't think he's a Jag. If anything, he'll be a Panther. It's a different cat, but a cat nonetheless. Jonah John says, I have Puka, Keenan, and Ridley as well, so I'm not hurting a wide receiver. Yeah, I think you'll be fine then. So at that point, yeah, you just need to wait for him to get healthy, and you'll be fine. Thank you, Jonah. Isaac says, Raiders or Lions defense? I have the Raiders slightly ahead. Slightly ahead. If I'm not mistaken, let me see here. The Raiders I have as my number 8 remaining defense, and the Lions are my number 11. It's kind of crazy that at any point I would ever rank the Raiders defense for fantasy purposes, but considering they're playing the Patriots, seems relatively fair there. Seems relatively fair. Start Foreman or Spears this week in a standard. Probably Foreman there. Cade C says, I swear my questions never get answered. Cade, where are you at, man? Where's your question? All right, let's see here. Where's Cade's question? I traded James Cook and Drake London for CeeDee Lamb. James Cook and Drake London for CeeDee Lamb. Depending on your running back depth, I think it's probably a W. Drake London, again, isn't a solid enough wide receiver to be able to trust every single week. And James Cook has been pretty good this season, but ultimately in a full PPR scoring format, CeeDee Lamb will easily outscore him. So as long as you have enough running back depth, going forward, I think that's a W trade. Dylan says, are you not accepting super chats anymore? I have no control over whether or not I accept super chats. So if it's not letting you do it, then it's something on your end. But you don't feel obligated to send in super chat. I'm here answering questions in the chat anyway. So do not feel obligated. Anyway, we've been here for just about, how long have we been here for? Just over an hour. Yeah, just over an hour. Hour and 10 minutes. So I'll probably be answering questions for another 10 minutes, and then I got to go get ready for tomorrow's video, all that kind of jazz. Do appreciate you all coming out here. Thank you very much. We had a question that came in from Roberto. Roberto says, I got offered Michael Thomas and AJ Dillon for Moss and Gallup. AJ Dillon's a backup, so is Moss. Gallup is kind of irrelevant, and Michael Thomas is somewhat startable. I guess. I mean, I don't love it because you're not going to start Dillon, but you'll definitely potentially use Michael Thomas. So I'm okay with it. I just don't love it. I'd rather just go take Moss and take him to the, Jonathan Taylor team and be like, hey, you want to ensure your investment is going to have value over the rest of the season, just in case. Let's see here. We had a question from Kamikaze. Says, Andrew, I have Burrow, Devonta Smith, Zay Flowers, DeAndre Swift, Kyron Williams, Jake Ferguson, Addison's. Okay, my bench consists of Love, Lockett, Algier, Palmer, Kincaid, Aaron Jones. On the IR, looking for an upgrade at my wide receiver 1. Devonta Smith, okay, DeAndre Swift, Kyron Williams. If you're going to upgrade your wide receiver 1, you're legitimately going to have to trade away Jordan Addison after he has a couple good weeks here. I don't think you can just do it off the cuff because Aaron Jones is still going to be a little banged up, so you're going to need to keep both your running backs. Devonta Smith has been inconsistent. He should be your wide receiver 1 in the next couple weeks. But if you're gonna try to make a move for a wide receiver 1, you're taking like Addison and Lockett and trying to go and play it for 1. Reminder for those of you who have joined us today, thank you. I appreciate y'all coming out, asking questions. Hopefully, I was able to answer your question individually, straightforward, or by proxy of answering somebody else's question. If you guys haven't yet already, do me a favor, click the like button down below. Also, again, like I mentioned earlier, this upcoming weekend, I will be live streaming on Saturday afternoon from 1 to 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. So if you still have questions by then, hopefully I can answer them there. If I still don't get to those questions by Saturday afternoon, I will also be live streaming on Sunday morning, 6 a.m. Pacific Standard Time to 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. A third consecutive Sunday morning live stream for 4 straight hours. Nonstop fantasy football content. So if you're interested, be sure to swing on by on Sunday morning. I'll have updated rankings on screen for all 4 primary positions. I appreciate that. Let's see here. Phil says, my running back depth looks like this. We have Kenneth Walker, Hall, Aaron Jones, JT Gibbs. Doing anything to improve it? 18 league? No, I don't think I'm messing around with that running back room just yet, Phil. I don't think I'm moving anything with that. Let's see here. Is Mahomes just a game manager now? It doesn't seem as explosive without Bieniemy. Here's the thing. Bieniemy's not calling the plays, and he was never calling the plays for the Chiefs. It's always been Andy Reid. That's why Bieniemy can never secure a head coaching job in the National Football League, is because everyone knew that Bieniemy was not the play caller. So he went to Washington to specifically call plays so that he can maybe get his name into the hat of being a head coach in the future. That's a good one, AGZ. That's a good one, actually. Angel Perez is in a full PPR. Trade away Pollard and CeeDee Lamb and receive Bijan Robinson, Devon Smith, and Javonte Williams. I would probably end up keeping Pollard and CeeDee Lamb in that scenario there, Angel. Jefferson and Puka Nacua for Tyreek Hill? No. I wouldn't do it. I think you're giving too much. Even with Jefferson missing 4 games, I think it's too much. John S. says, someone offered me Ridley for JJ. My other receivers are Sun God, Addison, and Watson. I'm currently 3-2, 12-man league. Don't know. Do you think I'll be all right? Ooh. I think you have to look at your upcoming schedule, the teams you play against. If they're in like bipocalypses and you can maybe sneak away with 2 wins in the next 4 weeks, I don't make that move and I just keep JJ and I get him back and then I end up kind of rolling from there. Jay McLaughlin says, do you think the Chiefs will try to trade for another wide receiver like Evans? I would hope that they do. I think it's needed for them to really take another step in the league, especially considering how bad they played offensively this season. They are definitely not. Even though they have Mahomes and they have Kelsey, outside of those two, there really isn't anyone to fear within that offense outside of maybe Pacheco. But again, every running back is to be feared to an extent in the league, considering all of them are really capable of having big days. All you need is a decent offensive line and a couple blocks here and there, and you're off into the races. Let's hear. We had a couple more super chats that were sent in. Let me cover these, and then Andrew's going to head out here. I do appreciate y'all coming through again. If we can get to 100 likes in the next 5 minutes, that'd be greatly appreciated. We just need 16 more. Thank you. Nico sending a question, says, I'm 3-2. I'm in a 10-team league. I need an RB2 and a wide receiver 2 and a flex. We have Herb. We have Stroud. We have Bijan. We have Brian Robinson. Okay. Pacheco, Najee Harris, Devonta Smith. Not Chris Evans. We have Mike Evans, Pittman, Pickens, Gabe Davis, Andrews. Any tips? Trying to trade for Waddle. Thanks. If you're trying to trade for Waddle in this circumstance, I would take Mike Evans and try to make that move. If you can't move Mike Evans for him, at that point, I would take Gabe Davis and maybe George Pickens and be like, all right, here you go. This is the best I can give you. Take both of these players. But outside of that, I'm not moving any of those running backs for him. I'll tell you that much. We had a question that came in from Anthony. Anthony said the following. I'm in a 10-team full PPR league. I have Swift, Saquon, and Taylor. Would you start all 3 or just 2 of them with Garrett Wilson or Jacoby Myers? I would start Considering, you know what, to be totally honest, if Saquon ends up playing this weekend, I would probably play him alongside of Swift. But if he doesn't, I wouldn't be surprised. And then at that point, you'd be forced to playing Swift and Taylor. Regardless of what happens with your running backs, I'm playing Myers at your flex in a full PPR. Thank you. Nathan Gutierrez. Let's see here. Where is your question, Nathan? I don't see it attached to your super chat, but maybe I can find you in the chat. Nathan says, different league, RB. I have Montgomery, Kyron Williams, Swift, and Henry. My wide receivers are Keenan Allen, Boyd, Godwin, and I need a wide receiver. Yeah, okay. So at this point, yeah, you should be moving for a wide receiver. I would trade away Derrick Henry if you could. Keep Montgomery, keep Kyron Williams, keep Swift. If I'm moving Derrick Henry for a wide receiver, I'm looking to potentially, in return, I mean, look, Derrick Henry still got upside, so I'm not going to sell him for just pennies at this point. I would like to get. There's no way you can get him. There's no way you can get him either. I think this might be a good time to go buy low on Devonta Smith or Chris Olave. I think that's kind of the mindset that I have at that point. Thank you, Nathan. We had a question that came in from Slater. Slater, thank you very much. Devonta and Evan Ingram for Cooper, Stevenson, and Kittle. Yeah, I'll take that. I'll take the. Yeah, I'll take that. I'll take the Cooper, Stevenson, and Kittle side rest of the season. Thank you. Chris Evans checking into the game. Yeah, exactly. Let's see here. It's Mech PG says 10 team full PPR. Need one running back. Saquon, Jonathan Taylor, Amari Mercado, or Deontay Foreman, or even Chuba Hubbard. That'll be determined on as to whether or not Saquon plays. If he plays, he's the starter. If he doesn't, then JT's next on the board. And then from that point, it's kind of a conversation as to whether or not you're playing Jonathan Taylor or Deontay Foreman. Deontay Foreman could get the start under the assumption that maybe Roschon Johnson doesn't clear concussion protocol. We'll have to wait until tomorrow to know that for sure, though. Jag Jeezy says, would you trade Pickens and Mostert for Debo and Pierce? Pickens and Mostert for Debo? No, I probably wouldn't. Not at this point. Not when I can get all of the upside of Mostert for the next couple weeks here. Let's see here. We had a couple more. Constantino, happy week 6. Thank you. Marcus Parker says, 10-team full PPR. I'm 4-1. My quarterbacks are Fields and Kirk. My running backs are Jacob, Swift, and Cook. My wide receivers are Chase, AJ, Olave, Thielen, Cooper. Andrews and Laporta are my tight ends. I know my team is stacked. Just wondering if I should do anything or just hold everyone. If you're going to move... Okay, so let's just see here. Your running backs, you can't move. Wide receivers, Chase, AJ Brown, and Olave are fantastic. If you want to move Thielen, you can. I don't think it's a necessary point to have to move him. Unless you're going to bring back ridiculous value. Like, if you're going to move Thielen, like, if you move Thielen now and you get Waddle in return, I'm happy with that. I'm okay with that across the board. But I don't know if someone is willing to make that trade in your kind of league. But otherwise, you're in no position to where you have to make a move. You are stacked, as you know. Stroud or Stafford this week? I prefer Stafford this week. The rest of the season, probably Stroud, but just slightly. Actually, even then, probably not. I don't know. But for right now, for sure, Stafford. Pickens for London and Roschon Johnson. Pickens for London and Roschon. I'm okay with that. Deontay Johnson returns soon, so that's fine by me. Kamikaze says, or should I trade for RB depth? Thanks. Kamikaze, let me see what the heck your rest of your team look like again. Where's the rest of your team? Burrow, Smith, Flowers, Swift, Kyron Williams. I mean, you don't need RB depth, though. Like, you have Swift, Kyron Williams, and Aaron Jones. You don't need it. Like, you have 3 solid backs for the remainder of the year. I wouldn't go crazy there. Henry Perkins says, hello, sir. Full PPR, Brian Robinson, Jacoby Myers, Zay Flowers. In a full PPR, it's Jacoby Myers. He plays far too well with Jimmy G. It's a revenge game. Should be a fun one there. MKS says, my team is now Dak, CeeDee Lamb, Michael Pittman Jr., Higgins, Olave, Michael Thomas, Deontay Johnson, I'm assuming. That's D. Johnson. Goddard, Brian Robinson, Herbert, Ingram, and Palmer. Okay, so you're talking to somebody else. Never mind. You're good to go. Andrew, thank you for all. Okay. After a lot of trades, I need help for the flex. Joe Mixon or Jalen Waddle. Depends what your scoring format is. Assuming it's a full PPR, I probably take Waddle there. And a half PPR, I'll take Mixon. Thanks for the question. Puka or Waddle, full PPR, rest of season? Rest of season, I would probably lean towards Waddle, but just very slightly ahead of Puka Nacua, because Puka's been looking good, man. Looking good. Thoughts on Jeff Wilson Jr. getting a run this week? He may. He has been activated off the injured reserve, or at least he's in the 21-day window. There may be a chance in which Salvin Ahmed plays more than him, though, because they're not 100% certain that he is fully ready to get a, full halves of workload, considering the second half is going to be a lot of the second RB within this offense running. I don't know if they'll fully give him the workload. There may be a lot of overall usage from Salvin Ahmed. Jack here TV says, thanks for the pick'ems. Oh, thank you. You're very welcome. Listen, at times I know I can be inconsistent with those pick'ems, but as of late, like I mentioned earlier on in the stream, 3 out of 3 in the last 3, overall my picks of the week. Sunday's pick of the week was, the Cup and Jake Elliott play. Monday's play of the week was Jacoby Myers and Christian Watson. Today's play of the week on the video that I posted earlier today was I just wanted to be safe. I didn't want to have more than 2 legs in each slip. I just wanted to have 2 legs in each individual one just to kind of keep it safe. 3 times our money via the pick'em slip was obviously Russell Wilson rushing attempts. I got lucky with that. He barely broke with 4. And then, of course, Harrison Butker, the guy made 4 field goals today, so that was an easy clear. But had me a little bit nervous when they went for that fake field goal, and I was like, oh, okay, that's going to be what trips me up this week. But again, for those of you who want to follow in regards to Underdog pick'em plays going into the given week, be sure to go ahead, check out the link down in the description, use code Andrew, make that first time deposit minimum of $10. Not only will you get the first time deposit match up to $500, but you'll also get my ranking sent to you every single Sunday morning. So instead of having to potentially send me questions here on a live stream on a random Sunday, all you got to do is just sign up once, make a first time deposit once of $10, and you'll get my rankings every single Sunday morning sent to your email by position, by tier, quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end, kicker, defense, half PPR, full PPR, top 120 flex, all of it available so that you'll have my answers in that regard. I do appreciate it. Otherwise, if you're not eligible based on the fact that maybe you're in a state where Underdog isn't allowed, or the pick'ems game or all that kind of stuff is not allowed, or you've maybe already made an account, you signed up with somebody else's promo code or mine from a prior season. Regardless, you can also check out Patreon, but otherwise, the eligibility based on your location, again, is US based, is in the bottom left. Of course, draft responsibly via Underdog Fantasy. The couple plays that I like for this week, I'm not saying that they're the plays that I'm gonna 100% buy in on. Let me go find it. Actually, we'll go over it tomorrow. I'll probably have a video. We'll go over it then. Aaron W says, you missed my super chat. Haven't gotten to it yet, but I do appreciate you reminding me. Thank you, Aaron. Don't worry, I'm not leaving just yet. Just have a couple more questions that I'll get to, but let's see what your question is, Aaron. 12-team full PPR, 5-0. Wow, okay, you're 5-0. I don't even have a 5-0 team. Can you imagine that? Week 1 was a disaster for me across the board, mainly because I have a lot. I have a lot of Joe Burrow, and I have a lot of Justin Fields in my leagues. A lot of them. And that has really killed me in week 1. But ever since then, dude, I have been on every week I look at my teams and I'm like, yo, I cannot lose. Anyway, enough about me. Knock on wood real quick. We have Josh Allen, Garrett Wilson, Stephon Diggs, Chris Godwin, Breece Hall, Mostert, Laporta, Christian Kirk, Brian Robinson, Sanders, Roshan Hubbard. Trade or hold? Okay, so Josh Allen's a hold. Diggs is a hold. Hall is a hold. Mostert is a hold unless you can move. Like, if you're going to move Mostert and go get Josh Jacobs after this week, I'm willing to do it, Like, that's a trade. If you're going to move him and go get, Saquon, or you're going to go get Bijan or Pollard, somebody of that top 5 capacity, ATN, let's go for it, right? Because, again, Achane will return, and when he does, he is going to be a very impactful player, to say the least. Laporta's great. Kirk is great. I think Godwin will probably get more utilization considering the hamstring injury, but he's still kind of on that fringe of wide receiver 2 kind of territory, wide receiver 3-esque. So is Garrett Wilson. If you're moving a player, I guess technically you could, I think the Mostert trade up is probably the best thing you can do. Outside of that, you could end up trading like 2 wide receivers. Like, you take Kirk and you take Godwin and you try to go after a CeeDee Lamb of sorts and try to find someone that's struggling with wide receiver depth, that it has injuries, that, maybe they lost JJ, maybe they lost Mike Williams, and they need multiple wide receivers, but they have one stud and they're willing to give it to you because they need the depth. That's a play that you could potentially go after there. Thank you. Let's see here. Mixon and Flowers for Ayuk and Judy. I don't want Judy, so I'll take the Mixon and Flowers side for now. What the heck is happening here? What is happening in this chat right now? What are you guys on about? Make a defensive rest of season video. Can you make drop videos? Make drop videos? I mean, Leo, who do you want to know if he should drop? Just ask me right now. I don't need to make a video on it. You know what I mean? Like, what? I don't need to make a video on it. Just ask me and I'll tell you. How about that? As a Bijan owner, would you rather have Pitts and Algier or Kittle with Quentin Johnston? I'd rather have Kittle with Quentin Johnston. You need new league mates if that's how you always feel. No, I don't need new league mates. I just need I need to stop, winning so many leagues because I'm just good. Sorry, that's the reality of the situation. I play in very competitive leagues, but you guys know I do this all day, every day. All I do is fantasy football, so I will always have the upper hand in every league I play in. That's just a given. Even when leagues don't want to trade with me, I still have the upper hand. Would you trade Saquon for Waddle? No, I wouldn't. Puka or JT or Higgins for the flex. For this week, it's Puka. Yeah, it's for sure Puka. Packaging Pickens and Sanders. What RBs are a fair target? Ooh, I don't know if you can really. Oh man, that's tough. I think trading away Sanders is like you're trading away pennies at this point. You're not going to get much in return. Like maybe you can go and get like Dameon Pierce. Like I don't think you're getting like a Derrick Henry in return. I don't think you're getting a Mixon or an Aaron Jones. Like it's kind of rough waters when you're trading away that kind of a low of a commodity at the running back position and asking for a running back in return. Appreciate it. Trade away Ridley and Pollard for Kyron Williams and Amon-Ra St. Brown. I would rather have Ridley and Pollard rest of the season there, Ken. Appreciate it. Let's see here. King Henry to have a big game in London. I would hope so. I'm sure they already have the graphics ready with him in like, the king crown and the whole garb. I'm sure they got the graphics ready. The graphics team is ready to go on that for sure. All right, guys. I've been here for about an hour and a half. I do appreciate y'all coming through today. Asking questions. Hopefully I was able to answer yours. I do appreciate that. Nathan Gutierrez sent in another super chat, but there wasn't anything attached once again. Nathan, where are you? Let's see. I'm going to try to find it. I also have Najee as my, okay. Following my last question, also Najee and Deontay Johnson. Henry, Mixon, Montgomery at RB. At wide receiver, I have Chase, Chark, Lockett. Should I stay or trade? Henry, Mixon, Montgomery, you stick with. You're fine there. Chase, Chark, Lockett. Yeah, I don't like Chark. Lockett's fine as your wide receiver too, but it's very inconsistent, which is okay. You can live with that. You have Deontay Johnson coming off the IR, which is fine. But you don't want to move those running backs at all because those are going to be your two starters and your flex going forward. And then Deontay Johnson and Tyler Lockett can kind of go back and forth as to who's that wide receiver two going forward. Cardi says, ESPN telling me Godwin over DK. Is that a bad idea? It depends. If Mike Evans doesn't play this week, I think it's a great idea. If Mike Evans does play, I'd probably lean towards playing DK Metcalf, especially with Chidobe Awuzie, the primary number one cornerback of the Cincinnati Bengals, being most likely out for the third consecutive week here. Stanley says, I'm currently 0-5. I have Love, Stafford, Gibbs, Tajay, Achane, Akers, Kupp, Watson, Deontay Johnson, Sutton, Reynolds, Henry. What do I do? You trade Achane immediately. You trade Gibbs immediately. You probably end up trading. Yeah, so you need to trade both those guys and get a running back in return immediately. Anybody that can be serviceable for the next 4 weeks at least plus, because you need to try to gather wins now. If you were to trade Kupp and get two wide receivers in return, I would also be perfectly fine with that. If someone wants to give you Jacoby Myers and Adam Thielen for Cooper Kupp, let's do it. Like, you're 0-5. Desperate times call for desperate measures. If you're playing in a 12-team league and 6 teams make the playoffs, you need to start winning out. So I would take your most valuable commodities and just try to bring in depth at all positions and at least have a solid baseline of production of everyone across the board to at least have a fighter's chance. At least. Okay, guys. I do appreciate it. Thank you, everybody, for sticking with me. Thank you for clicking the like button down below. Thank you for those of you who have supported the channel in regards to signing up, using code Andrew, purchasing the merch. I do appreciate that. Again, greetings and salutations, fantasy football. I do appreciate y'all supporting in that regard as well. Outside of that, that's where it's going to be. Tomorrow I'll be back with a video. Saturday live stream, Sunday live stream. I'm going to cue the music, play the double helix. And until next time, much love, and I'll see you guys. Peace.